The morning had begun in silence, that muffled, dreamlike stillness that comes before a heavy snow. Anna stood by the kitchen window of her small log cabin, hands wrapped around a steaming mug, watching lazy flakes drift down. The forest beyond her yard was draped in white, each branch bending under the weight of winter's hand. By noon, the air had changed. The soft snowfall thickened into a frantic swirl, the wind picking up with a hollow roar that rattled the eaves. The sky, once a gentle gray, darkened to the color of slate. Anna's weather radio crackled with a storm warning, visibility near zero, winds exceeding 40 miles per hour. She pulled on her heavy sweater, feeling that uneasy tightness in her chest that came with sudden weather turns. In these mountains, a calm morning could become a fight for survival by nightfall. By mid-afternoon, the blizzard was in full command. The world beyond her window was a blur, just white upon white, the occasional dark flicker of a tree trunk barely visible before it vanished again in the blowing snow. Anna turned away, thinking she'd light the fire early, when something caught her eye, a shape moving in the storm. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the wind, a shifting shadow in the white haze. But then it grew clearer, taking form. A bear. Massive, fur-matted with ice, pushing forward against the gale. It moved slowly, deliberately, head low. And clutched tightly in its jaws, was something. Anna pressed her face to the glass, squinting. Whatever the bear carried swung slightly with each step, but the storm swallowed the details. Then, without warning, the figure was gone again, swallowed by the whiteout, as if it had never been there. Somewhere deep in the wind's howl, Anna thought she heard another sound. Faint. Fragile. And nothing like a bear. The storm raged into the evening, but Anna couldn't shake the image, the hulking shadow, the bundle in its jaws, the strange, almost impossible sound carried on the wind. She tried to tell herself it was nothing unusual. Bears wandered close in winter, desperate for food. But food didn't usually swing like that. And food didn't cry. By nightfall, the wind had sculpted drifts against her porch steps, the snow piling high against the door. The fire crackled in the hearth, but her gaze kept drifting back to the window. Beyond the glass, only darkness, swirling snow, and the occasional hiss of wind against the cabin walls. Then, movement. Her breath caught. There it was again, closer this time, trudging through knee-deep snow. The bear's shoulders rolled like moving boulders under its frost-covered coat. It paused near the fence line, sides heaving, steam rising from its breath. In its jaws, the shape dangled limp, until it twitched. Anna's pulse spiked. That was no carcass. She stepped closer to the window, heart hammering. The bear turned its head, the storm light catching the bundle, a flash of pale fabric, a tiny hand. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. The bear adjusted its grip, almost carefully, and in that brief moment the bundle moved again. The sound came, clearer this time, muffled but sharp in the quiet between wind gusts. A cry. Anna's hand flew to her mouth. She staggered back from the window, her mind spinning with questions. Where had it found the child? How long had it been carrying it through the storm? And most pressing, why was it bringing it here? Outside, the bear didn't advance. It just stood there, head lowered, snow piling on its back, watching the cabin through the white curtain of the blizzard. It was waiting. Anna didn't open the door. Not yet. Her instinct screamed two different things: help the child and don't get near the bear. Both were equally deafening. She stood in the middle of the cabin, torn, listening to the howl of the storm and the faint, irregular wail coming from outside. Minutes stretched into hours. Or maybe it was only a handful of them. Time felt strange in the blizzard's grip. The fire had burned low, casting flickering shadows on the log walls. Then came the sound that made her freeze. A slow, deliberate crunch of snow, right against the porch. Then another. And another. Her heart thudded as she reached for the oil lamp and inched toward the window. The flame trembled, and so did she. The bear was there, towering, close enough that the frost in its fur glistened in the lamplight. Snow clung to its muzzle, and the bundle still hung from its jaws. But now, the bear's eyes met hers. It wasn't the wild, unpredictable look she'd expected. There was something searching in that gaze. Intent. Almost pleading. She took a step back from the glass. The bear shifted, lowering its head to the porch boards. The bundle slid gently onto the wood. The small form inside stirred, a weak cry rising over the wind. Anna's breath caught. The bear lingered only a moment longer, steam curling from its nostrils. Then, without a sound, it stepped backward into the snow. She wanted to believe it was leaving, but it didn't vanish into the storm. Instead, it stopped just beyond the edge of the porch light, a massive shadow watching. Waiting. The wail came again, sharper this time. Anna's decision was no longer a question. She unlatched the door. The cold rushed in like a wave. And so did the night. The wind almost tore the door from Anna's hands. Snow swirled into the cabin, stinging her face like sand. She pushed against it, squinting into the white haze until the small shape on the porch came into focus. It wasn't just a bundle, it was a child. A boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, wrapped in a soaked blanket that had frozen stiff at the edges. His cheeks were flushed a dangerous, too bright red, and his lips trembled with each shallow breath. Anna's heart clenched. She dropped to her knees, scooping him up. He weighed next to nothing. The bear didn't move. It stood a few paces away, snow piling on its back, eyes locked on her every motion. Its massive chest rose and fell slowly, as if it was making sure she understood. Anna carried the boy inside, kicking the door shut against the gale. The warmth of the fire seemed to sigh around them. She set him near the hearth, stripping away the frozen blanket and wrapping him in a thick wool quilt. His eyelids fluttered but didn't open. As she worked, she glanced toward the window. The bear was still there. Sitting now. Waiting. Anna couldn't shake the questions piling in her mind. Where had this child come from? How far had they traveled? And why would a bear carry him through a storm instead of harming him? The boy stirred, whispering something she couldn't catch. She leaned closer. His voice was faint but urgent, as though even in his fevered state, he was trying to say something important. Outside, the wind howled. The bear's ears twitched at the sound, and for the briefest moment, Anna thought she saw relief in its gaze. Then it turned, vanishing into the snow without a sound. The boy's eyes fluttered open, and the first word he said made her blood run cold. Anna barely had time to process the boy's trembling whisper, "It's still out there," before a deep guttural sound rolled in from the storm. Not the roar of the wind this time. Something heavier. Closer. She rose slowly, moving to the window. Through the blowing snow, a dark shape loomed. The bear had returned, but it wasn't alone. 2 figures emerged from the white curtain behind it. Men bulky in winter coats, their faces shadowed under hoods. Each carried something long and unmistakable in their gloved hands, rifles. Anna's pulse spiked. She stepped back from the window, instinctively placing herself between the boy and the door. The bear's massive frame stood square in the yard, head low, blocking the men's advance. One of the men shouted, his voice muffled by the storm, but the bear didn't flinch. Snow swirled between them, the wind snapping at loose straps and hoods. The boy clutched her arm. "Don't let them take me," he whispered. Anna's mind raced. Hunters? Kidnappers? Whoever they weren't here for good. She reached for the iron poker by the fireplace, gripping it until her knuckles whitened. Outside, the standoff stretched into long tense seconds. The men shifted, clearly impatient. The bear took one heavy step forward, paws sinking deep into the snow. Its growl was low, rumbling like distant thunder. One man raised his rifle, but before he could aim, the bear lunged. Snow exploded around its charging form. The men stumbled back, shouting. One fired a shot into the air, the crack splitting the storm, but the bear didn't slow. Anna yanked the boy toward the back of the cabin. They needed to run, but part of her couldn't tear her eyes away from the window. Because in that moment, she realized the bear wasn't just protecting the boy. It was protecting her too. The storm had broken overnight. Anna woke to a light so bright it felt like the world had been scrubbed clean, the sky a crisp, unbroken blue, the snow glittering like powdered glass. For a moment, she wondered if everything that happened had been some fever dream conjured by the blizzard. Then she saw the paw prints. They circled the cabin in wide, deliberate arcs, leading off toward the treeline where the forest swallowed them. Beside them, smaller footprints, boots, trailed partway before veering away, disappearing into the drifts. The hunters, if that's what they'd been, were gone. The boy sat at the table, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. He hadn't said much since the chaos. His eyes, though, were clearer now, the haunted look softened. "Do you think it'll come back?" he asked. Anna glanced toward the trees. The bear had vanished without a sound, leaving no sign but those massive tracks in the snow. She thought of the way it had stood there, unyielding in the face of rifles, refusing to move until the danger was gone. "I think," she said, "it came here for a reason. And now it knows we're safe." The boy gave a small nod, then returned to staring into his mug. Anna pulled on her coat and stepped outside. The air was sharp in her lungs, carrying the faint scent of pine. She followed the paw prints to where they met the forest's edge, the sunlight casting long blue shadows across the snow. Somewhere deep among the trees, she imagined the bear moving silently through the undergrowth, carrying its mysterious burden onward. She never learned what it had been holding in that great jaw during the storm. But she understood something else now, that sometimes in the coldest nights, help arrives in the most unexpected form. And sometimes, it leaves before you get the chance to say thank you. Some stories stay with us, not because we know every answer, but because they remind us there's still mystery and kindness in the wild. If this one touched you, share it, and join us for more real and imagined tales where humans and animals meet in unexpected ways. Subscribe to BearSoul Stories, and let the next story find you.